Retopologizing our mesh is really the application of creative problem solving, and I've run into a big problem here with my nose. I have a density around the nostril that is of such that requires me at the moment to send a whole series of new edge loops going up into the eyeball of my character. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we're adding additional information going towards the rear of our mesh, which is potentially going to cause some problems. So one solution that we can do is to change the flow of the poly loops in certain areas. We're going to loop them around back onto themselves. Instead of sending this poly loop northwards towards the eye, we're going to have it curve and bend and can go underneath the mouth itself and connect back onto itself on the other side. These little hooks, these little bend, poly loops are a great way for us to terminate loops back onto themselves. It creates a zone, if you will. So here's again the problem that we're trying to solve. In order for me to connect these to this loop here, I would have to add 2 additional edge segments in there, right? Now that's a lot, because now I have an eyeball that's of much higher resolution, and the density and the placement of these edges around the eyeball is getting a little funky. We get more at the bottom than we do going around the rest of the eye. I'd like, if possible, to keep it as circular and as uniform as I can. So let's look for other solutions, and this is where bending the flow of the polygons really come around. It's going to get real tight in here because we're not working with a tremendously large space. So I'm just going to take a second here and push some of this stuff out of the way. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's going to be good. Just kind of spacing this stuff out to make it a little bit easier for me and my simple little brain here to figure out how in the world I'm going to make this work. Okay. So here's the idea. We're going to start bending some poly loops. Instead of taking this one north like that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to bend it. And I'm going to bend and redirect the flow with the diagonal line in the edge itself. So instead of having an edge that looks perfectly horizontal like this, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a diagonal like this. See how it bends? It goes up and then it hits a corner and then goes immediately to the right. I'm going to start with the outside, and I'm just going to, oops, hit the wrong button, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go straight down. I'm not going to worry about connecting it yet. That's going to come here in a second, so I'll hang on to that one. Now what I'm going to do to help reflow all of these loops is that I'm going to do the first one way over here on the outside of this area, and then I'm going to do this inside one. Same idea. I'm going to extrude it up. I'm going to make an angle. This one's going to go on top of the others, and we're going to have a small little gap in here as well. This edge segment needs to be in line with its neighbor right below, and eventually it's going to get joined together. And then this one, we're just going to have kind of follow suit, something like that. There's supposed to be a gap in there. We're going to fill that gap in a minute. But can you start to see how we're bending the flow of the polygons around the nose? I like to think of these kind of like little railroad tracks, right? The train leaves the station over here, hits a corner, and then turns going this way. Now what this has saved us, okay, and what this has really kind of facilitated is that we've reduced the number of polygons and the number of edges going up into the eyeball by 1. Instead of having 3, now we have just that one. Ta-da! We only need to have 1 additional edge segment going up versus 2. I misspoke earlier. It wasn't 3, it was 2. So we've gone from 2 to 1, which I like. That's a little bit more manageable, right? Because now it's not as intense. And I think I'm just going to start welding these verts together like this. Ta-da! Okay, now down here at the bottom, these are going to need to connect to something. So down here, we don't care about the density of the polygons down here at all, because this is just going to be under the chin. We're intentionally wrapping them around the chin to save those polys from looping towards the tail of our creature. So we have the room, and we can afford to add some additional edge segments down here. Good topology kind of hides the flow of the geometry in the mesh itself. And admittedly, it takes some practice and some study and some experience to get this to go correctly, but this is the basics of it. That's a polygon. That's a polygon. Now I have a problem here that I need to solve. I need to send this edge going across that way, but that's fine. We just use a loop slice. Hold down shift. That's a polygon. That's a polygon. See how it's working now? All right, now let's figure out how we're going to do all of this stuff down here at the bottom. We're probably going to have to do something very similar because I don't want to have, well, actually I may get lucky. Look at this. Holy cow, I think I just got lucky because we need to have a connection point for this vert right here. And if I was to add a loop, holding down control, look where it naturally wants to go. It's looping across the top of the head. It's not looping down towards the back. We just got lucky. The universe just gave us a high five. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to get lucky on all of them, but let's give it a go. I'm just going to manually space some of these out. We're going to talk here in a second about a smoothing tool that does a great job at establishing a wonderful density of polygons automatically for us, because it's getting a little tight in here, and we want to have an evenly spaced system of polygons that defines the topology of our mesh. Let's just see if this solution works, just holding down the shift key. Uh-oh, we got a triangle. Now, triangles aren't the end of the world, and actually, it's not a triangle. If you look very carefully, it is a quad polygon. It just looked like a triangle, so that's okay. This is great. We like quads, and then voila, there it is. It's all connected together. The cheek, the head, changing the flow of the polygons, going downwards instead of back towards the eyeball, really saved us some geometric complexities inside the mesh itself. And I'm very, very pleased that we were able to do this. All right, let's just finish the job here real fast. Add in a couple new edge loops. Hold down the shift key, asking the computer to go in and to add those loops for us. Now, I think I'm going to have to do the exact same thing down at the bottom. I could absolutely send more polygons down the neck, but as you would imagine, that sends more polygons down towards the rear. If we can avoid that, I'd like to avoid that. So let's do that same flow changing pattern that I did earlier up here. So I think what I want is I want to have this one be the one that's angled. Yeah. Let's see, because then we can connect it in like that. Do the same thing for this guy. This will be an angled one. Yeah. Instead of having a couple new polygons go down towards the neck, now I think we're only going to have one. Cool. I'm digging it. Let's just connect all these border ones together, fill the holes with the shift key, and there it is. Wonderful. Yeah, that works out quite wonderfully. I'm very pleased with that result. Changing the flow of our polygons is absolutely essential in the creation of a good retopologized mesh, and I'm quite pleased with the result that I've gotten so far. I'm just going to take a second here and just close up the mesh. And then I think I'm going to call this little project, for the moment, finished. Yep, okay. Let's see. Let's figure out where this one wants to go. Connect the dots, right? That's kind of what we're doing here. It's just a really fancy game of connect the dots. And this one is going to go there, and that's it, folks. We've retopologized the head. Of course, the ear is still needs to be completed, but that's it. That's the retopologized surface of my head. If you take a look at what we've done, we've had to change the flow of the polygons to achieve the result that we're after, and it saves all of these polygons from having to be terminated in the rear. We're terminating them amongst themselves in loops that connect back onto themselves versus loops that go towards the rear and terminate in the tail. So changing the flow of our polygons is really going to help make our model an incredibly efficient sculpture that has intelligent loops built into the topology of our mesh.